Hey everybody, I am Danielle Aldrich and I am the teacher of the visually impaired in Floyd County, Kentucky. For my PAN project, I have created a functional vision assessment kit. So the current problem of practice and why I chose to choose this topic is that there are multiple areas that we evaluate and assess as TVIs. So it can become overwhelming to make sure that we cover everything and know how to accurately assess each vision skill for all of the different visual impairments. So currently there isn't a concrete testing kit that you can just buy for evaluating every area of our students' functional vision. So when a student is referred for a visual impairment, part of the evaluation includes the functional vision assessment. This evaluation is conducted over numerous days using various materials and methods to test each area of their functional vision. I have created a functional vision assessment kit with video models and resource links that TVIs can use to see the materials and methods needed to complete each section. So just as a reference, in this PowerPoint, all of the pictures you'll see and the materials that are referenced, they have embedded links to the websites where you can purchase them. And then I've also created a compiled list right here. If you want to click on this link, it'll take you to this products list where we tell you what the skill is used that you test for. So if it's acuity and then the name of the product, and then we have the link right next to it where you can purchase it from. So that's right here on the slide too. So for the whole FEA kit, these are the areas that I'm going to cover. We do visual acuity, color vision, oculomotor behaviors, visual fields, depth perception, contrast sensitivity, and then I have a couple other online resources that we use. This bag, again, because all of our pictures do have a link embedded in them, this is just a bag that I do like to use for the whole kit. All these resources that I'm going to show you that we use for testing, I keep it all in this one bag because it is huge and there's a lot of areas that we test. So it's nice to keep them all in one area. Okay, so we're going to start with acuity. And this is a handmade worksheet, and basically it just lists near vision and distance vision, and it breaks it down with and without correction for both the right eye, the left eye, and then both eyes working together. We allow our students to use their hand, especially when they're younger. It's a lot easier to do if you're doing individualized, to allow them to use their eye to cover. So we're going to start with the different charts that we use. For distance, this is when we're measuring it from about 20 feet away. And first thing you need to do is determine if the student needs pictures, letters, or numbers to choose the right chart to use to get their distance acuity. So some of the charts that I reference on here, the Snellen chart uses letters, and it has the basic red-green lines for the color vision. The kindergarten test chart uses pictures. And then we have a low vision distance chart that uses numbers. So it just depends on the student really, and you do kind of need to know like what their basics are to see which chart for distance would be best to use with them. So they do have the letters, the numbers, and the pictures. And again, if you click any of these, it has the link where you can purchase these from. And then you're going to want to do their near vision. And I really like to use the LEA symbols chart. It comes with a bead attached to it, so you know the distance, so it's exactly 16 inches. What I really like about this chart is that it comes with the cards with it. Let me show you on the next slide. So it comes with the matching 4 symbols of what the student would be seeing on the chart. So if you have a student with communication issues or more of our low incidence population, sometimes they cannot express this is a house, this is a square, etc. So they can actually point to those cards or they can hold them up. And that way you can get a near acuity still with another way if speech is a concern. So for informal acuity, a resource that I really love to use is APH's FELMA Practitioner's Guidebook. And they have a section for near and distance informal acuity testing sheets. And this is just an example that it shows us using familiar sized objects and money at designated distances. So these are when if a student doesn't know their shapes or their pictures or things like that, this is familiar objects that they might be able to say, oh, that's a scissors, that's glue. It's things that we see in the school as well. Another resource for acuity that we really love to use, especially for the near informal acuity testing, APH's Newt kit. They come with the 1-inch, 2-inch, and 3-inch photos in both color and black and white. And you can order just the cards or you can order the whole kit. So how you use these pictures, this is what we really love for our FEA when we're writing it in our report. We record how many pictures of each size and at what distance the student could see for both the black and white pictures and then the colored pictures. And you can know if the student had difficulties with more visually cluttered images, if the colored versus how detailed the picture was, and at what distance they were able to see more of. This is more for finding acuity. Some people really like using technology. So these are just a few apps that we like for getting a distance and near acuity with our students. This is the most accurate visual acuity test that we've used on the iPad. It's called iSnellen. Another one that we use is called iChart Pro. And they do have different types of charts. Again, so like the Snellen chart, the tumbling E chart is on this one, the Sloan letters, the near vision. And a lot of these, you can use the iPhone as a remote. And then they do have other advanced features, like you can change the colored backgrounds, you can change the landscape formatting, you can add additional charts on it. Another one that we've used is the K Eyesight Test Professional, and this uses the choice of letters or the K pictures, and you can change the crowding as well. So you can do 50%, 25%, and this is very user-friendly with changing the sizes and charts on it, but it is free only for the first initial trial period, and then you do have to purchase it. Okay, so for acuity, when we have a student who all of the charts that we just discussed are not an option, especially sometimes it's easier to use this with infants or children who have severe cognitive disabilities as well. We use the Patty Stripe Square Wave 4 grading paddles. We just call them the Patty paddles, but that's the formal name of them. And they look like this on the picture. And again, if you click this, you can get the link to where to purchase them from. So with a student like this, let me go to the next slide for you. So when using the paddles, how this is administered is when the student sees the grading paddle, they will visually respond by looking and following that paddle. So you're going to always start with the larger striped size and then move down paddle. So each paddle comes with a very wide stripe, and then they get smaller as you go on the paddles. When the student stops selecting that striped paddle over the gray paddle, that's the acuity that you note for their distance acuity. And I have created a demonstration video of using these paddles and how to do it with a student, because you're going to start with the biggest one and you cover up with the gray, and then you're going to separate them. And the one that the student responds to, they're going to respond to the striped one. And then you're going to keep moving down stripe sizes. And that's when you notice that they no longer respond to the one that has the stripes versus the plain gray paddle. That's the acuity you're going to note down. And this is hard. This is very uncommon or not as used in our field. So this one is I always have to reference back. And it does have a recording sheet, and it does give really good instructions on how to use it too. So again, if you want to click this video, it breaks it down again. This is a book that I really, really like. It's called Vision Assessment of Infants and Children with and Without Special Needs. And on pages 53 through 58, she does a great job giving you a resource for testing and reporting the grading acuity that we just talked about using the paddles. They have a great sheet of breaking it down and like how the student responds to it. And so I really like using this book. If I'm going to assess a student using the grading paddles, I always reference this book too in my report. For if the grading acuity is not an option, another acuity that we can use is called a functional or a detection acuity. This measures the ability to look towards a functional object. So like if the student would look towards a specific toy, and you determine the smallest object at the greatest distance the child maintains visual contact with that object. And so like this is a chart, and if you click this chart, it is a link to the Texas School for the Blind, and they have a functional acuity chart that they've actually already measured for the distance and then the size of the object, and it really helps it break down. And I always, if I'm finding a functional acuity for one of my students, I include this chart in my report as well. So what you want to do is find that toy or that object that the student is drawn to, or that will look towards that functional object, and then you find the smallest object at the greatest distance the child will look at, and that's what you record it as. You type the size of the object and the distance that the student is looking at, and that's how you determine their functional acuity on your assessment. The next one that we use, this is another chart. This was created by Dr. Donna Lee at the University of Kentucky, and she created this template for sizing objects. So again, like when we're out in the field and you're trying to complete like a functional acuity, some of the different objects, like how are you supposed to know their size? And you want to keep it like a specific template. So this already has it, and you can match the size of the object on this template, and then you can reference it in your report like that. So the toy was, and you put it in the square that matches the size about, and then that's way you know the different size of beads or foam pieces to match this template to. For another functional acuity, there is a test called the Sheridan's Ball test. You can use this when the student has complex needs and struggles to communicate what they're actually seeing. So the examiner will observe the student's shift of gaze, tracking, or their change in visual behavior when using this test. So how you administer this test is you use a series of different size styrofoam balls, and you roll them in front of a black background at a distance of 10 feet. And the examiner will note the smallest size of ball that the child visually responded to. Some students, if this distance is too far, just make sure you note it in your report that they did not respond to any size ball at 10 feet, and you can try moving closer, like at 5 feet, the student responded to an 8-centimeter ball. And again, these are white styrofoam balls, so you have the high contrast against that black background. And this is called the Sheridan's Ball test. So moving on, those are everything we use for acuity. And again, they all include links to the products, and we have them compiled in the list. So moving on, the next part of our functional vision, we move to color vision. So this is just an informal way. I got these paint chips at our local hardware store, and I got 2 of every one. So I was just seeing if they could match the paint chips together. This is another one is from the Newt kit from APH, and they actually include 3 paint chips of different hues. So they have a light, a medium, and a dark shade. And I really like these color chips from the Newt kit because it really shows like some students struggle to tell the difference when it's a lighter or a darker color. For a more concrete actual assessment for a color vision screening, other than just matching the chips, we call it the Quick 6. And again, you can click the link to purchase it. But this is very user friendly, and it has a score sheet, really simple. And this is numbers. And again, the student must know their numbers, or they can actually trace them with their finger. So if the student doesn't know the names of their numbers, you could say, can you trace what you see on this page? And the student can actually still outline if they have no visual color vision deficits, they'll be able to still see that number. And they don't have to identify it by name. Your point is not to know if they know their numbers, it's to see if there is any color vision deficiencies. So I really like the score sheets with this. It's really easy to quick, simple, circle down. And it just shows you a pass or fail for the color vision screening. Another one that we use is the Color Vision Testing Made Easy by Dr. Wagner. Instead of numbers, it uses simple shapes and pictures. So again, just you have to know the student kind of and what they know. And this does include a score sheet. Very simple. Did they see the square and the star, the circle, the square? And yes or no, and then it tells you if they passed or failed. And at the end, it does have simple pictures of like a boat, a car, a dog. And then again, if they can't say the names of the shapes that they're seeing, you can also just present it to the student and lay it in front of them and say, can you trace what you're seeing? And you're going to be able to tell if they're seeing that color difference to see that shape or that picture on it. Another one, these are again for our TVIs that really like to use technology. These are the color vision apps. There's just a few of them on here that we've used. Again, and some students like to use an iPad versus paper and pencil or these books that we've been using. So again, on these iPad apps, if you're presenting these with it, the student can trace, I guess, better on the iPad versus just sitting on a book on your lap. So we do really like both of these. The next area that we test for the functional vision is contrast sensitivity. So here's some more resources that we use. This is the LEA numbers low contrast flip chart. And then this is the hiding Heidi low contrast face test. So again, based on your student and what they know, do they know their numbers? Because they're going to have to be able to name their numbers when using the numbers chart. And it goes down by the contrast. Each page that you flip over, it gets lower and lower in contrast. And then in the Heidi face, those are again like a face versus numbers. These are ones that I really, really like to use. The Sloan Letter Set Low Contrast book. It has 7 contrast levels. So you start from 25% to 0.6%, and each page is a different percentage. And it includes really easy to read reporting forms. So at the end, it tells you exactly what the last letter at what contrast the students are able to see. And it breaks down how to administer it really well. It has great instructions in the reporting forms. Instead of just using a flip chart and stuff, we do sometimes just have the contrast charts on the wall. And again, for itinerates, sometimes carrying these big charts around can be hard. So in one of my schools, I do have the low contrast chart on the wall or on this easel. And so this is the Pelly-Robson chart that I really like. And the letter sequences are grouped into threes, or they call them triplets on the instructions, I think. And the contrast decreases from each group of 3. So the contrast will change even halfway through the line because it's three letters, and then even on the same line, the next 3 letters are actually a lower contrast. And so it decreases in that group of 3. And then the reporting form is very easy, and I really like how user-friendly the reporting is with this Pelly-Robson chart, because it breaks it down. If you're going to do contrast sensitivity, it has the left eye, the right eye, and then both eyes together, and it gives you a percentage there to record. So that's really user-friendly. For blink reflex, again, these are all of part of the functional vision with our students. You test blink reflex by quickly moving your hand in the direction of the student's face to check the blink to threat response. Again, so this isn't any concrete test that we're using. It's just a quick, do they have a blink response? To test blink to touch response, touch either the student's forehead, just between the eyebrows, or on the nose. Okay, so it's like if you're going to touch, you're going to blink. The next area that we do is their pupil response. So this is just, you can get pen lights from anywhere. This is just the ones that I like to use. So you darken the room for 30 to 60 seconds. The pupil will dilate. You turn on the light on or illuminate the face from below towards the center of the forehead using the light pen, and note the student's pupil response. Okay, so it should constrict. So you're going to write this in your assessment. You know, did it constrict, or was there a delay when the lights were turned on? Was there a delay in your pupil response? The next area that we do for visual skills is awareness and localization. So this is just things that you can find in your classroom or around your house, I use a bright pencil topper or one of these pom-poms that you can stick on top of a long stick or a pencil, something like that. Or you can use a flashing toy, those little light up toys that you can find at the Dollar Tree, to determine if the student had awareness or appear aware of an object. And then localization, are they able to pinpoint the local location of that object? So you're going to present the objects against a black background. Again, we always preach that you don't want visual clutter, or is it because of contrast issue? You don't want anything like that. So you always make sure you present it on a black background. And at the end of this slideshow, I show you some of the things that I use for those backgrounds too. And then note if required lighted toy or if movement to obtain either skill. So if you just present the object against that background, did they respond and are they aware and localize it? Or did you have to create that moving of that flashing light to get that response? And again, or did you have to move it to get that response? And then you make sure that the toys are silent, so the student isn't attending to the sound. That we do want to make sure they're attending to that toy using their vision, not their hearing. The next skill that we test is fixation. So we observe the student and look for indication that the student is actually fixating on the desired object, such as maintaining gaze or reaching for it. Suggest using a high interest toy, something lighted or bright, whatever the student's very interested in. And again, make sure it's presented on a plain black background. The next skill that we use is shift to gaze. And this is how you test by moving fixation between two objects. And you know if the student can look smoothly from one object to another. Know if the student can copy from the board, like if they are going to fixate at the board, which is a distance, and then shift their gaze and fixate on their near paper. So a lot of our students, you can see it sometimes, see that they have trouble copying from the board. And is that related to their shift of gaze? And this video, this is a really good video that I like, and it shows how to shifting gaze from near to far video of how to assess it. Another area that we do for the functional vision is scanning. So we're going to test the ability to shift gaze from one stationary object to another using both head and eye movements and be able to identify the object. So some of the activities that we use, we put index cards of pictures, letters, numbers, or words on a wall, and we have the students scan the wall, naming what they see in a row. I really like, especially for our students who have CVI or just for like really high contrast bubble words. I never want it to be like a conflict that they're not able to do this skill because it was printed and it was blurry, or the words were faded, or it wasn't a good enough high contrast, like if you have blue words against a light blue wall, etc. So I really like these bubble words. This is the Roman bubble word that you can type your words in and print them off from this website. So we usually use that as a reference for when we're doing our scanning. And you can also use it if your student, if this is a re-eval, again, just as a extra, but with their monocular, if they already have a prescribed monocular to test this and add extra info in their re-eval, we like to use those bubble words and scan using our monocular on the wall as well. The next area that we test is tracking. This is an informal way, okay? So we stand within 2 feet facing our student, and with your hand or a bright object, like a pencil with a bright topper on it, we're going to have them trace capital letters, the H. So you're going to make it with your pencil, like the H. You're going to do an O, and then a slash, a diagonal slash. And you're going to note the eye movements in all directions of horizontal, vertical, circular, and diagonal when you use these letters and the symbol. So you're going to track, are they able to track these letters? And you're going to know any behaviors that you see when doing these. And then you can also use things for horizontal movements if you're tracking, like most skills that we're doing is horizontal tracking with reading across a page left to right. And they have wind-up toys. Again, Dollar Tree's our best friend. But these little wind-up toys, and they'll go across the table, and you're going to note if the student can track it going left or right, etc. How for a concrete test that we use, I really like the NYSOA KD test. And this is a method for evaluating. How it works is the student is presented with this test, and there's three different tests, three subtests, and there is numbers. So again, they are going to have to be able to verbally state their numbers. So there's numbers, and each test, each subtest, as you go on, they get more visually cluttered, and they have less lines to help them track. So on the first test, there's actually lines connecting each number, and then they have to go down to the next row. And then on the second test, there's no more lines, and they're closer together. And on the third test, they're very cluttered, and it's hard to tell which row they're in for some of our students. And this is always timed, and then it's normed, so it tells you the average time for which age the child should be being able to track these numbers across the page. So I really like to show that like they're tracking if it is so far behind, if it's 1, 2, 3 years behind the typical peer for tracking abilities, like how could they're able to, especially their time, if they're tracking at a much slower time, this is just more evidence to help you in your evaluation to prove that the child may need extended time because their eyes aren't tracking at the speed of their same age peers. Another test that we really like to use is the developmental eye movement test. Again, this will actually assess both reading and non-reading tasks. They have great reading report forms for this one. And this actually, instead of just horizontal tracking, this actually has a vertical tracking too. So some of those math problems and some word lists are actually wrote vertically. So students may have another vertical tracking issue as well. So we really like to use both of these tests just to help us prove evidence that tracking is a deficit and how it is going to impact them in the educational setting. The next area that we do for functional vision is muscle balance. So the test that I really like to use is you hold the pen light 3 feet from the student's eyes, pointed at the bridge of their nose, and then the reflection should be symmetrical in both eyes. This is hard to see. Another one that we do is the cover-uncover test, and you have the student fixate on a visual target in a central position, and you cover one eye and note if there is any movement in the uncovered eye. Okay, so if they're fixated on the object staring ahead and they cover this one, does this eye stay in the same location or does it move when you cover the other eye? And again, and this is just kind of all informal documentation, right? Is there a muscle balance issue that you're noting? Is the reflection symmetrical, and does the eye move when the other one's covered on that fixation? Another area that we do is eye preference, just to note, so teachers are aware and working with the student. So eye preference, easiest way, if you put something in front of them like a monocular, or if you don't have access to monoculars, a kaleidoscope, a toilet paper roll, a paper towel roll, and just say, be a pirate, or let's find something on the wall over there. Can you look through the tube and spot what's hanging on the wall? The student automatically grabs it with their hand and brings it to their dominant eye. So this is just really nice to be able to write down which eye is dominant in the reflex for it. Another skill that we test is convergence. Convergence is to test the ability to maintain binocular vision as objects approach or retreat from your nose. So just an informal way to test this, you're going to hold a bright visual target in front like a pencil with a topper, and then you're going to move it towards the student's nose. And the student should fixate and slowly move their eyes towards the bridge of the nose. And you're going to note if the eyes move symmetrically inward as it approaches and back as the pencil retreats. This video is really good that I've linked in this slide to show how to administer this test and what you're looking for. So it has a very close up of how the patient's eyes are converging as it approaches the nose, and then how that goes back when it retreats. This is just a test that I really recently just discovered, actually, but I really like the 3-figure test flashlight with reversible glasses. And this is just a quick test for like double vision, suppression, fusion, and it really helps with if you're seeing convergence issues or the parents or their doctors reporting this. This is just more evidence for your report to say, yes, we are seeing convergence or insufficiency. Or students with strabismus sometimes have issues with this, with the double vision. And this is a light that has the 3 figures. And if you have the glasses on, if they're having issues, they won't see one of the figures, and you can automatically document it. And then you actually switch the glasses, are reversible, so that color will go on the other eye. And you're going to be able to tell if there's a convergence issue by using this one as well. The next area that we do is depth perception. So there's a few different tests that we use. The random dot stereo butterfly test, it comes with the glasses, instructions, score sheets, and this all tests like if the student is able to see like what we call 3D. The kids like to say, I got my 3D glasses on. So if they're able to see the shape that appears and all that grading. The informal observations for depth perception, just a few to talk about. You're going to note the student's ability to reach for objects. Are they reaching directly for the object and picking it up, or are they doing like a swiping search method? Are they overreaching, underreaching? You want to note when the student is walking, what is their response to changes in ground surfaces? So if you are walking on a tile floor going to a carpet floor, or walking outside on the sidewalk stepping off the curb, or walking on the cement to grass, to pea gravel, to wood chips, know if there is any response that the student struggles when the surface changes, if they're not noticing that with their depth perception. And again, anything with like drop-offs or stairs in the school setting. Another one that we do is sometimes that you put out in the hallways, if you'll put 2 chairs, one more in front of the other, and you're going to say which chair is closer to you, which one's farther away, which one's closer. That's an informal depth perception one. Another one we like to do is if you blow bubbles in front of the student and you have them one finger and they have to just poke and pop. They can't swipe, they can't hit, they can't move their hand like this. It's just poke and hit the bubble. Are they able to see exactly that location, or are they doing the swiping motion? But another concrete depth perception test that I really, really like is the Lang stereo test, especially for our kids who do not like glasses. Most of the depth perception tests do require glasses. This Lang stereo test, it does not. It can be administered quick and without glasses. So I really like this one, especially with our younger population or some of our students who have cognitive disabilities, and then putting on glasses can cause a sensory issue or anything else. So the Lang stereo test, it has a quick card. It has 3 objects on it. Are they able to see them or not? And it has a really easy scoring with either negative or positive results of depth perception concerns if they are able to locate those objects. Another one, this one does require the glasses, but the next one that I do use is the Burnell Stereo Test Book. And again, this tells you it's for all ages, and it helps detect binocular vision issues. And especially with our students with amblyopia or strabismus, suppression, it is easy to administer, and it does include the red-green glasses. And then it has a reporting answer key on the back, and it's easy to, if you make a copy of that back page, and then you can just use it as part of your notes and your scoring sheet as well. And these have really common objects for kids, like a figure skater, a basketball player, a football, baseball, just different objects and stuff that they might be familiar with. So I really like this one too. The next area that we do is visual fields. And this area is really hard, I think, to test. It's very informal. But one of the areas that we do is where you sit facing the student, and then you have them close the same eye. And with equal distance in between you and the student, you present a visual target. So like I use a black stick. It looks like a magician stick, I think, with a dot on the end of it. And you make sure the student is seeing the dot, can hide easily by turning around the stick. And then you know if the student detects the target in the field. I have seen a lot of people, they, if the student can do it, you hold 1 or 2 fingers in the field instead of like an object. I just like using the stick because sometimes I feel like if I use that long stick, I can move it in the field without the student seeing my arm move. Like when I use my fingers, I feel like they almost see like the movement of my shoulder, my elbow, my arm in it. And so I don't know if they're really seeing it or if they know it's there because my arm's moving. So a longer object that you can move without just your wrist and they're not seeing your arm move. This video I included is really good reference with somebody administering how to test the visual fields. And they do use an object and they do use their fingers in all 4 quadrants. So that's really nice as a reference of how to see it done. This is where if you sit facing the student, you can have them look over at a visual target. So this is where, honestly, I'm going to be honest, a clown nose, if you put it on, if you put a clown nose on and you tell them to look right there, or you put a sticker on your nose and tell the student to look right at that sticker. And then you're going to have a second person who stands behind the student and they slowly present a target in each area of their visual field. So I use, this is a squirt gun, those long squirt guns from Walmart that or the dollar store that you see out during the summer, or you can use a long yardstick or something at the end of it. Sometimes I've used a selfie stick, and I just put something on the end of it, and you can just like move a selfie stick, and you present it in each visual field, and then you note when they're seeing it. So like, are they all equal, or is it very delayed in the right field? You had to present it almost right up to their face till they saw it. So this though does require 2 people for testing. The next area, this is just some different materials that I referenced throughout this. So that was everything that we cover for testing for functional vision assessment. That was every area that I read in my report. These are just materials I really like to keep in my bag as well, especially when using, if you're an itinerant and you're carrying everything around. I always make sure I have both a hard and flexible tape measure. Again, this helps with, sometimes your charts are standard at 20 feet. The student may not be able to see it. Like what distance are they able to see it at? Again, with using those Newt kit pictures, what distance are they able to see these at? So I really like to just quick whip out a tape measure and know the exact distance right there, and I jot it down as we're presenting those informal acuity tests. More materials that I really like to keep in are the flashlights with different colored filters in them. Again, that helps with the color vision test. Sometimes the lights in the dark room. Sometimes I even use those when doing the pupil response. The black background, this is a foam board, and you can buy these out any of your craft stores or anything, but I created a black background, and all I did was hot glue these clips across the back of the board, and I can present materials then across this board. So those Newt kit pictures or my color chips, and this is just easy to like already have it done and set up. I really like to present materials against this. Or another one that we use this is the read write stand from APH. And I just put like a black piece of paper in front of it. So the stand's already up there, and that way it's like closer to the student. It's not laying down or it's not on the wall. So this is just a stand, and I always just put something black in front of it. And it can just even be like a black piece of fabric, and then you present your materials on top of it. Or the all-in-one board from APH as well. That one's already a stand. You can lay it flat, you can stand it up, and that's black felt that's already on it. And so again, if you're presenting materials that like have Velcro on the back, you can just stick it to that board already. So I really like these. These are both from American Printing House. And again, if you just click the pictures, the links are on here, or it's on the products list as well. So some web resources that I really like to use, I just want to share these with you. This is a functional vision assessment template that I really like. It's from Perkins eLearning. And another one that I really like, this website breaks down each section of the functional vision and has links to free printables, and that's teachingvisuallyimpaired.com. And they have a whole section on the functional vision evaluation. And it does have references. It has printable sheets of if you want to jot down notes while you're completing it, or what instruments you used, informal, or one of these tests that we just went over. And I would just really like this website. Another one, this is a good website to use when you explain the purpose of the functional vision to parents, is familyconnect.org. And they have a whole section on the functional vision assessment, especially with parents, and explaining what all is entailed in it and what areas you're going to be testing and what's going to be used and what's the purpose of testing this area and how is it impacting their child in the school setting, like how you're going to test it and how you're going to see what the impact is in the educational setting. The last resource that I wanted to share was the Functional Vision Assessment Checklist, and this is from the Texas School for the Blind. This has a great checklist, and it's for different sections. They have it for different age groups and how to test each area using different ways for informal or one of the tests that we just discussed. So again, thank you and good luck with all of your functional vision assessments. I hope all of this in one resource really helps our TVIs out there. And again, the videos on here, they're really great. They're the best ones that I found out there that I think are just quick, easy, and they give the best instructions on how to administer some of this. And if you're struggling with an area on how to test, it's really nice to have these reference of where the materials, what materials you can order to test each skill. So I hope you guys enjoy your new FEA kit. Bye.